Carnage is one of the most feared villains in the Marvel Universe. This symbiote is usually bonded with Cletus Cassidy, a notorious serial killer, and is known for being a sworn nemesis of its parent symbiote and their host, Venom and Eddie Brock. The most frightening thing about Carnage, though, is how much it relishes killing, and how deranged it is. Cletus himself is so deranged that even when he had his alignment reversed in the Axis event, he did not even really understand how to be good. He just never has been wired that way, so it's unsurprising to find out that there are tons of versions of Carnage that are equally scarier. So it is unsurprising to find out that there are tons of versions of Carnage that are equally scary, if not scarier, than the original. This is a character that is just built to be a killer, no matter the alternate reality or circumstances it is placed in. Today we'll be exploring some of these other frightening versions as we count down the top 10 scary Carnage alternate versions. And be sure to stick around to the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10, SCORN. While SCORN itself isn't inherently scary and is more of an offspring of Carnage, it is still also a part of the symbiote who has led its host to do some pretty frightening things. Tanis Knives' prosthetic arm was made by Michael Hall, who had managed to capture the Carnage symbiote. Experimenting on it, he used parts of the symbiote in his designs for prosthetic limbs, which means that Tanis Knives' arm ended up giving birth to a baby Carnage that is part symbiote, part tech, which we later called SCORN. Before Tanis really embraced her symbiote, though, the SCORN symbiote used Tanis to help free the original symbiote of Carnage, who was then able to make its way back to its main squeeze, Cletus Cassidy. Bonded together again, Carnage was once again ready to wreak havoc, all because of SCORN and Tanis. Pretty terrifying that her symbiote made her do that. Number 9, Ultimate Carnage. Like the Ultimate Venom, the ultimate version of Carnage was also made in a lab when combining the DNA of Peter Parker and Kurt Connors with some of the Venom symbiote. This version of Carnage quickly grew to become a little monster who had the need to consume human beings in order to stay alive. It used memories of Peter Parker's to return to his home and ended up meeting Gwen Stacy there, whom it then killed. This version of the Carnage symbiote also kind of lived on in Gwen after she was cloned, using part of the symbiote and her own DNA to bring her back, giving us kind of like a weird version of Gwen who is also kind of Carnage. Number 8, 92niverse. While you wouldn't necessarily think a version of Carnage from a kid's cartoon could be scary, I'm sure there are some who found Carnage terrifying when they watched this cartoon as a kid. We call this universe the Earth of 92131, or the 92niverse, because it houses both the reality belonging to the X-Men 90s cartoon as well as the Spider-Man 90s series. And X-Men started airing in 1992. In this universe, we are introduced to Cletus while he is holding up an entire police department, proving just how dangerous he is in this animated reality. During his first run-in with Spider-Man, after Cletus has now bonded with the Carnage symbiote and is working with Venom, he takes on and defeats both Spidey and War Machine. And he actually would have even killed Spider-Man if not for Venom stepping in and stopping him. Number 7, 1602 Carnage. The Carnage of Neil Gaiman's 1602 was Cletus Cassidy, who was also known as the leader of the Sinister Sextet. A frightening thing to think about, a version of the Sinister Six where Carnage is the leader. Ugh. Sounds like a really crazy version of them. This version of Carnage claimed it got its powers from a demon, though being that it was 1602, it is possible that Cletus just thought the strange being we know as a symbiote must be a demon, because, I mean, what else could it be? Aliens, space travel? We didn't know about that stuff in 1602. Number 6, Cosmic Carnage. This version of Carnage is from when Carnage actually was bonded with the Silver Surfer, and in the What If series Volume 2 of issue 108, Carnage finds himself stuck on the Silver Surfer. In this reality, Spider-Man and the Avengers tried to split Carnage from the Silver Surfer, but they failed. This symbiote seems hell-bent on holding onto the power cosmic, and getting revenge on the Silver Surfer as well. And actually, Carnage being bonded to the Silver Surfer as long as it had meant that it had manifested Norrin cosmic powers itself. So even if it had separated, it would still probably have the power cosmic. In the end, the only way for this frighteningly powerful version of Carnage to be defeated was by having Silver Surfer fly into the sun, sacrificing himself so that the Carnage symbiote would forever be destroyed. Number 5, Crossover Carnage. This version of Carnage appears in the crossover comic Spider-Man and Batman, whose story exists in the crossover universe of Earth 7642. This version of Cletus has a similar backstory to his 616 counterpart, except that he finds himself cured of his homicidal insanity by Cassandra Breyer. At least, temporarily cured, shall we say. Breyer uses technology to implant a chip to cure Cassidy, but the Carnage symbiote, of course, residing within him, finds a way to disable that chip. When Cletus ends up in Gotham with the other famously cured villain, Joker, he uses the symbiote to also disable Joker's chip, so the two of them can team up. That's a terrifying idea. This version of Carnage also comes close to killing Batman, who's only saved because, of course, Joker can't seem to let bats die, and he threatens to gas all of them to death, which causes Carnage to panic and attempt to escape, giving Batman the window that he needs to defeat Carnage. Number 4. Superior Carnage. This version of Carnage was meant to be one of the members of the Frightful Four. It was created by the bonding of Carl Malice and the Carnage symbiote, and then later on, the Wizard and the Carnage symbiote. The Wizard's original plan was to use mind control to convince the Carnage symbiote to do its bidding, which would have been a great idea if Carnage's usual host, Cletus Cassidy, hadn't just basically found himself in a lobotomized state. So there wasn't much there to control at the time, if you know what I mean. In the end, Malice is the one who ends up being forced into having the symbiote merge with him via a blood transfusion, which is not something that he's super interested in, but it happens anyways. This creates a terrifying new version of the symbiote who seems to love guns and is loyal and obedient, thanks to the Wizard's hold on his mind. For a while, anyways. Eventually the Wizard does lose control of Carnage, who ends up leaving Malice, eating his body, and bonding with the Wizard. Number 3. CARLA UNGER. Nothing like a mad scientist story gone wrong. Well, I don't think Carla was originally a mad scientist, but she was definitely a scientist, and she was definitely driven mad by Carnage. Carla was one of the many scientists studying neutered pieces of the Carnage symbiote following the events of Superior Carnage, except that the piece she was studying doesn't appear to be as docile as was promised. It leaps through her microscope and into her eye while she's studying it. Upon arriving home after her day of work, the hatred that she feels towards her abusive husband pumps up the piece of symbiote within her, activating it and allowing it to take hold of her, basically breathing life back into Carnage. This symbiote helps Carla to get revenge on her abusive husband by killing him, before eating her from the inside out. Not as good. And hopping from host to host in an attempt, of course, to get back to its favorite host, Cletus Cassidy. Number 2. Zombie Carnage. Elsa Bloodstone ends up running into the zombified version of Carnage, or what's left of it, in Volume 2 of Marvel Zombies, issue number 2, out of 2015. Her and the kid she is traveling with, whom she calls Shut Up, end up on a trap that Carnage has laid out, known as a scab web. This version of the villain has been reduced to just the upper torso, and appears to be covered in little blood blisters. It finds itself defeated after its head is ripped off and is used as a projectile by Elsa, and its body, or scab web, is unleashed but then subsequently set on fire by a man who appears to be Ranger Warren Worthington, but is actually Zombie Mystique in disguise. Spoiler alert. I really hoped it was Angel too. I really wanted it to be Angel. Just flying around, surviving somehow. In this version anyways. In Marvel Zombies 1, he definitely did. Number 1. Aunt May. What could be scarier than any of these versions of Carnage? How about the idea of twisting usually kind and elderly Aunt May into a monster by making her Carnage? Yep, that is what happened in the most recent volume, Volume 3 of the Spider-Verse in issue number 2. There, Spider-Man, Earth 3123's Aunt May and Miles Morales of Ultimate Universe 1610 must team up to take on the alternate Aunt May version of Carnage. Carnage Aunt May and her Earth's Peter Parker and Uncle Ben work together to try to murder their other counterparts in the multiverse, as they believe the existence of the multiverse proves that basically nothing really matters. They are a force of chaos and death, and this version of Carnage is so deadly that she actually proves to be too much for both Miles and Spider-Man, who are working together. To beat this alternate Carnage back, Spider-Man actually needs the help of various alternate versions across the multiverse. I definitely thought she was gonna die. I was like, no, is this how Spider-Man goes? No! Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who is your favorite Carnage alternate? Which version of the symbiote do you think is the most terrifying? Would you enjoy seeing a more heroic version of Carnage in the comics, like we did in Axis? Would you like that to be explored more? Your friendly neighborhood Carnage. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Strongest Alternate Spider-Man Suits. Kingdom Come Superman comments, I was expecting his Captain Universe Spider-Man suit to be included. Now I did think of Captain Universe, but it's really the Unipower that grants him his awesome powers. As far as I can tell, the suit is more of a cool accessory, but I suppose one could argue that his suit, when in contact with him, is somewhat then powered by the Unipower itself, which I guess would make it quite strong. 905 Woody writes, I would love to see a Wakanda-based Shuri-built suit for Miles. I would also love to see that. And also just more Miles and Black Panther team-ups. If you're a fan actually of Shuri and Miles though, I would recommend checking out Shuri's series. In issue 6, they do team up together, although it's not Black Panther Shuri really. And Kamala Khan also makes an appearance as well. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, as always, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube.